Welcome back, Mark. New York election is very interesting, and I think that is the challenges of American politics or domestic politics or American domestic power projection. Muslim alone cannot win, but Muslim plus a lot of I think Roman Catholic are supported there. Democrat in this election, can you say Muslim and Catholic are combined and they win the election? What's your opinion on this election?
That's a really good question, and setting the table there, it's pretty crazy. So I think Roman Catholics are the biggest block, something like 24%, but the Jewish block, it's something like 18%, a lot higher than like 2.5% of the general population. Now, as far as influence is another matter, but I'm just going by numbers of population. So let's look at influence. Donald Trump in 2024 was said to have gotten roughly 45% of the Jewish vote among Jews who identify as Republican. Trump got around 45% in 2024. In this most recent election in New York, the mayoral campaign, you had Cuomo got roughly 2/3 of the Jewish vote. Okay, roughly 2/3. Mamdani, roughly 1/3 of the Jewish vote. And Curtis Sliwa, the Republican candidate, got about 3% of the Jewish vote. So you have the Muslim candidate that you have the whole Israel thing that a lot of people are up in arms about, okay, got 10 times of the Jewish vote than the Republican candidate. So what's going on here? And I think it's very, very complicated. So not only
why is
it complicated? Well, because Mamdani is, how shall we say, the old saying, many things to many people. He's not just a Muslim, according to his own self-identity. He's also a socialist or and a democratic socialist, which I believe in calling a spade a spade. Democratic socialism is a term that Vladimir Lenin used. So I think he is, for all intents and purposes, a communist. We could beg to differ, but let's just say a Marxist perhaps. But he certainly is a socialist. So Marxism, socialism, communism, these things don't traditionally go very well with Islam. So what's going on here? Well, hold on, because there's more. Mamdani is claimed to be Indian. He's also from Uganda, so he can claim that. Muslim, socialist. So he's claimed these different kind of things at different times, which is, you can say all politicians do that. But I think we really have to look into this mix because the numbers don't make sense. For instance, the Jewish vote in New York City and Mamdani doing so well, even compared to a Republican like Curtis Sliwa. I think there's a lot of dirty dealings that went on with the voting. New York has been a sanctuary city in the past. They're not exactly into the law and order of who's supposed to vote, is my understanding of it. But I don't think that can explain it either. I think it's going to be disastrous for New York City. You have roughly 9% of the people in the city, according to New York Post, are saying that they were definitely going to leave New York if Mamdani won. And then another roughly 24% of all New Yorkers said they might leave if he won. So roughly 1/3 of New York City's 8.4 million or so inhabitants said they would either maybe leave or would leave. So I think, so, anytime that Marxism and these socialist projects that he wants to do, like have your free supermarkets and things like that, and rent freezes, it's not worked. Everywhere it's been done, it's tanked and destroyed the economy, unless it was balanced with capitalist policies, and only then in Western Europe for a very brief period of time in the post-war era. So I'm not trying not to prejudge, but I am saying I'm trying to call a spade a spade. I just don't know what spade we're getting because he's claimed to be so many things.
Do you think, according to his campaign, election campaign promise, can he really do such kind of free shopping or many, you know, providing many free things? Where the source of money he can get and just for campaign election, or it will not at all really, it will not happen on the ground?
He wants to raise corporate tax. I forget the figure I was just looking at would be something like a 58% increase, something crazy. Even Kathy Hochul, okay, liberal Democratic governor, she said, no way, no way, that we do not want that at all. So, but he's going to try these mechanisms wherever he can. And Margaret Thatcher had a line about the problem with socialism, is that it works until it doesn't, because eventually you run out of other people's money. And I think that's what's going to happen with New York. You'll have some people will benefit. They'll have the media will be all over it. And the people that only watch CNN or CNBC will believe it even after it ceased to be true for years at a time. And it's very bad. There's going to be a lot of capital flight from the city. I think crime is going to go through the roof. He wants to get rid of cash bail. All these really terrible, in my opinion, policies that have failed in the past. And another reason that I don't think enough people are talking about is, I mean, look at what Trump did. Trump didn't even try to get behind Sliwa, the Republican. He backed Cuomo. And that seems a very strange way to go at it from a policy perspective. And a lot of Republicans are not happy with Trump's policies towards Israel. He is being seen as a little bit too kowtowing, if you will, to Netanyahu. I don't know if you remember, but Netanyahu gave Trump a gift several months ago. It was a pager, the ones that were exploding. So, I mean, I saw that. I don't have to tell you what I thought that symbolized coming from who it came from. So that's just all part of the context. A lot of Republicans are not comfortable with that. They're not necessarily going to go out of their way to go and vote for a Trump appointed candidate, particularly when it's a Cuomo. His father was governor in that city for many years himself. So the Republicans have a lot of problems, and I don't think Trump is helping them with the Israel front in particular, which gets into the demographics and religion that you were talking about before. And it's a mess.
See, so you said a lot of people are leaving New York City, and they will move to other states. Many entrepreneur, businessmen, especially, they are leaving New York because probably you said the Mamdani going to raise tax in New York, then that's the reason they are leaving. So if they raise the tax, exactly, it will affect Trump Tower too, right? Trump business directly is challenge to Trump, right?
Yeah, that's a fair point too. Trump Tower and his corporate offices in the city would have to pay higher. But like you said, they'll just pick up and move. They'll go to Texas or Florida. Florida probably first. They'll go to other states where they don't have to pay those higher or perhaps any even corporate tax rates.
I see. So they are moving and raising tax, and his connection with Africa. He was born in Africa. Black people, a lot of vote him.
That's part of, if you were looking to make a Frankenstein of all the things to appeal to the underclass, he's got a little bit of it, right? He can say he's from Africa. He's also said he's Indian. He's got the communist thing. He's got the Muslim thing. So if you look at, and I really believe it's of the utmost importance for political scientists to try to get in the head of people that they disagree with. So I think we both can probably understand the arguments that these different groups would put across about why they have a problem with culture in America and America's foreign policy over the years. So now you have all these things put together that can appeal to, say, an African American that's never been to Africa in their lives, but here's this guy who's from Uganda, um, looks different, has a different religion, but hey, he's still from Africa. And hey, guess what? His policies claim they're going to help the underclass and the oppressed. And, you know, when I was younger, I believed the whole socialist line. But, you know, you get older and you understand history a bit, you see how the world works. And unfortunately, usually doesn't work. But I think he's going to fool a lot of people. And when the bill comes, well, he's just not going to get reelected. He'll go on a talk show somewhere or whatever they do nowadays, you know, cut the federal funding, you know, for various programs would be one way to go, like the whole sanctuary city thing. He had a similar dynamic with New York, but he was able to get on with Cuomo because they could play hardball with each other. And I think there was a certain amount of mutual respect. I don't see that happening here. I think Mamdani is being backed by forces that do not have any common ground with Trump. And then that's another thing we could get into. But you know, Mamdani is a product of, let's just say, he's accused of being a product of massive amounts of Soros Open Society funded money. Whether or not that's true, it seems like the same modus operandi are being used. There are front groups that are put out there, and the actual funders or the actual dollars and cents at the end of the day aren't always on the federal submissions for these things. So I think there's perhaps certain irregularities there. And most people on the left that I've seen in this country will just off the top of their head say, well, look at the Koch brothers. That's the same thing. But my understanding, I may be in error, but is that the Koch brothers funding of neoconservative causes and things like that doesn't quite rise to the level of the Open Society foundations that Soros has funded, not just in the United States, but around the world. So I think that's something a lot of people are not familiar with. I think Mamdani is someone that Soros will throw over board in a heartbeat, or whoever it is that happens to be funding him, by the way. And one other thing that I'll put out there, you know, Trump's a little bit too close to, I think, Netanyahu for my own taste and a lot of people's taste. So you have this dynamic where people that have influence over Trump, perhaps to a certain extent, whether it's business dealings or prestige or intermarried family things, right? Things like that. You have a large pro-Zionist camp backing Trump in a lot of things. And then you have a large pro-Palestinian camp that appears to have created Mamdani. Even if Trump and Mamdani wanted to get together and work things out, like Trump apparently did with Mayor Adams about a year ago. Unbelievable, but it actually happened. I don't think that can happen because they both seem to be beholden to diametrically opposed lobbies. That can be used by adversaries to drive the city into, I don't want to say civil war, but let's just say civil dysfunction. And then really bad things can happen, such as martial law or, you know, the whole strongman leader coming in. And that's how countries start to lose their checks and balances. And the racial problem in this country is not limited to New York City. It exists in all the big cities in this country. And people are going to be watching New York to see what happens with these new policies. And there are a lot of people that want to fan those flames to bring America down. And I think that's a much greater danger than if the mayor is a Democrat or a Republican.
So can you say New York is the largest city in US and is the most multicultural city, or how can you categorize it?
Yeah, numbers I don't have off the top of my head, but I think it's the number one city in the country, certainly in terms of power and, as a port. It's the creation of culture largely stems from New York, and particularly in print media, or at least it used to. Um, and things that affect New York are not only going to affect the Eastern Seaboard, but the economy in this country too. And that has ramifications, as you know, globally.
Right. A lot of business in New York, right? And also Florida, California, Texas.
Mhm.
Most money are based in those places, right? In US.
Yes, yes, and it's just one of those things of some people will benefit from policies that Mondani will create to make their lives easier. But at the end of the day, where's the money coming from? What's going to happen to all of the other services? Historically, the society tends to break down. And I think crime is going to rise too with policies like no cash bail. It's going to kind of be a free for all. So, and this is what people are so partisan. Republicans, I don't see talking about this either. What will happen after Mamdani runs the city into the ground, I believe, is you will get a very conservative candidate that will go to the other extreme, and then the people, the underprivileged people on the left, relatively speaking, they're going to be justifiably very upset because Republicans will go to the other extreme. This is part of the atmosphere and the environment of, well, why do you think a person like Mamdani was allowed to rise to where he is? The same could be said of certain other politicians.
See, you said George Soros. Uh, if I'm not wrong, George Soros used to work with Democrats for a long time, right? They work together. But George Soros himself is a Jew, right? He's a Jew and
He is he
he is working with Democrat. I don't know he has uh, any special reason to support Muslim or just part of a Democrat party agenda. He just working with Democrat, but maybe his own personally, he has nothing related to Muslim, right?
Yeah, there's a good book by I believe it's Gregory Palumbo on George Soros. I forgot the actual title, but Palumbo with a P. And Soros, when he was young, he actually worked for the Nazis to help round up Jews. And there's a 60 Minutes interview you can find online. I think it was with Leslie Stahl. Anyway, they asked him about that, and he said, it was happy making time for him. He was having a great time. If he didn't do it, someone else would. This is a man who, yes, he was born racially Jewish, but doesn't seem to have much empathy for his fellow human being. I mean, he tried to take down the Bank of England. That's kind of his thing. He's a corporate raider, but he also believes in the Open Society Foundation of tearing down borders, destroying nationalities, and then building this technocratic world where people like George Soros get to say what you should be doing in your own country. I reject that wholeheartedly. And anyway, that's what people like his son now, Alexander Soros, and others are working when they fund these candidates across the country in different races. Mamdani is just the latest, but also in the most powerful city, at least in this country.
Right. I mean, George Soros, I mean, he been supporting many activity and many area, many countries. I'm not sure he has any related or any support to the Islamic extremists in Palestine or Syria or any other country, supporting a lot of turbulence, violence, protests, those things in many countries, also within America.
It's been a while since I've read Palumbo's book on Soros, but from what I remember, I do believe he's involved with funding certain Palestinian causes, but I don't think his rationale is to help oppressed Palestinians or even to get back at Israel for whatever. No, I think his idea is helping to um, uh, cause domestic ferment so that he can absorb power structures by playing extreme sides against each other and getting his own people into district attorneyships and then other political positions across the country. It's kind of his modus operandi, or now it's his son, Alexander. Um, so yeah, he's it's just something to think about because people like Mamdani come out of nowhere and then they go back into the sunset out of nowhere. But the kingmakers remain, and the media they'll talk about Koch and people like that, but they don't really talk about Soros unless it's to dismiss or to ridicule something right now. So I think that's certainly part of it.
Right, right.
Yeah, so many people. There's a term, useful idiots. And I think we've all maybe been one at different parts in our lives where we think that we're working for this good cause, but it turns out that cause is being manipulated by this group. Like the Soviets used disarmament and anti-nuclear groups throughout the Cold War. So we had all these people risking their lives, many of them college students, for these wonderful sounding causes, but it was really they were being manipulated. So one way it happens, this is going back to 2016, with the whole Russia, the charges of Russian collusion by Trump. Well, people forget that Trump wasn't the only ones the Russians were backing. In fact, in the report that Robert Mueller issued, I believe it was in the first part of that report years ago, the Mueller report, there was one day, I forget the day, I believe it was 2016, either 2015 or 2016, there were two protests going on in like the same area. One of them was pro-Trump and the other was pro-Bernie Sanders, and that the Russian intelligence was behind both of them. So each group didn't necessarily know that the other was funding them, but that's what it was. Now, fast forward to today, I don't think the Russians have as much to do with these dynamics now. I think they have other issues going on, but people like George Soros that are not loyal to any one country, people like the CCP, which Russia would be helping indirectly, probably. My point is there are many enemies of America, and they're not all state actors that are involved in these things. They don't always know they're involved in these things. And very often the whole point is to use extremes on both sides in order to steer people towards a direction you want them. And I think people need to start looking in that direction. Otherwise, they will be blindsided when a right-wing conservative comes in after Mamdani and goes too far to the other extreme. We should be able to see ahead and maybe do something that's a little bit more balanced in between.
So definitely Russia hate George Soros, right? Russia restricted George Soros, and they don't allow George Soros to come to Russia, right? So
right, he got kicked out of St. Petersburg University by Putin a number of years ago.
I see.
Ironically, right, because he's Jewish, but with the Nazis, there was an old gentleman who had done something similar to the Jews, Krupp, but he was so old they didn't even put him on trial, and then he died a few years after. So his son didn't really have much to do with it. They couldn't touch his son. I think that's what will probably happen here. Soros isn't going to be with us all that long. His son probably doesn't know a whole lot of the day-to-day operations. I don't know, but unfortunately, that's the way these things often go.
But you don't know exactly what is George Soros' role in this Mamdani?
There's a group that call themselves the white collar fraud. Now, I'm not familiar of their bona fides. Okay, this is just an article I was looking at before. White collar fraud alleges that $40.9 million traceable to Soros networks backed the Mamdani campaign. Let's see. So again, they have legitimate front organizations fronting the money. but the control is actually through controlled boards or leadership councils, however they do it. And then things are supposed to put on the books for federal paperwork. They're not necessarily doing that. But beyond that allegation, it's a report by a group called White Collar Fraud. I don't know. Something else that they claim is that this campaign in the city for Mamdani claims 75,000 volunteers, but none of them seem to appear in the campaign finance reports. So that's something investigators could look into. What are his financial records for the campaign? Does he really have 75,000 volunteers? Well, where are they? Things like that.
So can we say there are George Soros' role in Mamdani election?
Maybe the Open Society Foundation denies all this. Okay, so, but that's where I would look. It's New York anyway, so it's not like a Republican was going to win, but maybe Mario Cuomo. I'm sorry, not Mario. Maybe his son. I'm sorry, forgetting the governor's name again. Andrew. Maybe Andrew Cuomo might have won without, some undue influence. I don't know.
So George Soros is usually, behind the screen and supporting many political party, mainly Democrat or many president election. So whenever after those election they win, he get the funding, a lot of funding, and then later he support them, and then he get the money back.
Yeah, I mean, they used to call it the patronage network. You would be the patron for this and that politician in this city, or this judge, or this attorney general, and then you can get certain laws in your favor for your business, or in his case, perhaps his political ideology, changes that he wants made in this country, even though he's a private citizen. And again, I pull no punches. The Republicans are to blame for a lot of this with the Citizens United Act, which allowed these, anonymous giant corporate entities to get involved in our elections, and we can't tell what's going on. So, as far as I'm concerned, there is bipartisan chicanery afoot. First Muslim, as far as I know, also the first South Asian, too.
So. And African born.
And African too. It's the whole. If you remember Kamala Harris, she would do this thing depending whoever she was talking with. She would be either Indian or Black, or she would speak with different dictions. But you know what? It kind of worked for her. She rose above her level of incompetence, as they say. So it seems that this guy is using the same trick. It's not the first time a politician has done it. It won't be the last.
So multi-ethnicity background is very good for election in US, right?
Yes, yeah. I don't know what the numbers are, but my initial impression is that Republicans didn't come out in droves the way that they would have if Trump had been a little bit less on the pro-Israel wagon. I don't know if that would have made a difference, but I think that's part of it. And, there are legitimate gripes that the poor have and have always had, but socialism, Marxism, those aren't the ways to fix it. But it's going to continue to attract well-meaning people that are voters. It has for 150, 200 years.
Let's see. I mean, New York is always dominated by Democrat, in spite Trump relation with Israeli government, but why Jewish people, they don't support Benjamin Netanyahu?
Well, I mean, opinion is very divided. I don't know the numbers, but I know that, for instance, at in New York City, Grand Central Station, I believe it was, there was a big protest and it seemed to be religious Jews were very prominently involved against what Israel has been doing to the Palestinians. In Israel, they've had big protests against Benjamin Netanyahu, including, I believe, some of the policies towards the Palestinians. So Jews are not this completely monotonous bloc that's always pro-Zionist or pro-Israel. There's large minorities, at least, that have disagreed very strenuously with the policies of the government in Israel, particularly Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu himself was on trial when Hamas's incursion happened, which is a whole nother story we can go into. But yeah, that was something that was known about. Israeli intelligence, Egypt told Israel like a week before, I think, Israeli intelligence, and had been telling them repeatedly. But I think Netanyahu blamed it on Israeli intelligence, and Israeli intelligence blamed it on Netanyahu. But so a lot of Jews are quite upset with that. I mean, again, Mamdani got a third of the Jewish vote in New York City.
It's interesting for how he can get the vote. He's Muslim guy, you know.
Jews have long traditionally been pro-labor, which means pro-democratic party in this country. I think a lot of it has to do with coming to a new country as an immigrant, so you don't have a lot of money or connection. Jews have been historically pro-left in this country, involved with union movements. A lot of Jews were involved in communism and socialism, and they have their reasons for that, one being the pogroms that the Russian people would have against Jews. So revolutionary movements, Jews were among the leaders, including of communism. In this country, a lot of the labor movements were led and influenced by Jews. So there's a strong tradition of social concern for causes, even though the policies might be completely self-destructive, doesn't mean that the concern is not valid. So I think you have a lot of Jews that they voted Democrat their whole lives. Their fathers and their grandfathers voted Democrat, and they can't quite bring themselves to vote Republican. And some of them think Israel has gotten too heavy-handed with their treatment in Palestine. But I think a lot of it is the left-wing media has savagely been attacking Trump for years. So Jews, like anyone else, tend to be good card-carrying members of the party line. If your party line is what Fox TV says, then you tend to repeat that. If it's what CNN says, you tend to repeat that. And I don't know if there'll be, what I think will happen, okay, because of Mamdani's policies, some of the things he comes out with that a politician has to be very careful about more than most people. He's going to say something, people are going to get hurt. And when Jews get hurt as an aftermath, or he lets, say, people that attack Jews out without any bail, then you'll start to have some prominent Jews. They'll say, we can't have this. And then I think you'll see a change of mind. And then I think you'll start to see Arabs and Palestinians or anyone that doesn't look white enough will get beat up and have trouble. And again, it's dividing people that don't really have anything against each other, but it's these forces that are kind of moving them like chess pieces against each other. And I hope I'm wrong about that, but that's kind of how I see it happening.
I'm not sure. Party line, they are voting Mamdani, and Mamdani is Democrat candidate, and all his agenda are Democrat agenda. You can say that, right?
And again, it's only a third, roughly 60% voted for Cuomo, 63%, I think, of Jews, but then only 3% for Sliwa. So again, it's only a third, but it's a third. So, I'm doing the best I can to try to explain it, because I think it's a phenomenon that really should be looked at. These things can be somewhat cyclical. Back around the time of 9/11, in the aftermath of that, there was a strong neoconservative movement that was led by many prominent Jews, and therefore many Jews voted for the neoconservatives. Bush won 2 elections, but that's kind of been the anomaly that I can recall in this country. And, labor, politics, to a certain extent, socialism. I mean, Israel is a socialist state. At least that's how they started. The kibbutz is a commune. It's a socialist kind of entity. So even though Israel has developed a lot since 1948, it was born as a socialist state. So you have that element as well.
So you want to say Israeli country is socialist state?
Well, the kibbutz is, and that was one of the organizing tools that was used, having teaching Jews how to farm and grow their own food and live together communally, things Jews hadn't done in a long time, if ever, in large numbers. Part of the idealism that fueled people in the Soviet Union. Of course, that didn't work. In Israel, the kibbutzim, as I guess they would say with the plural, I'm not sure how they've worked or not, but it certainly has capitalist elements in their economy. They're not a communist state, and I wouldn't call them a socialist economy, but there certainly are socialist elements, such as the kibbutzim. So like when the state was started, Israel got invaded by something like 6 or 8 of its Arabic neighbors. They used Czechoslovakian and Soviet weapons at the time. Those were their main supporters. The United States didn't become a huge supporter of Israel, militarily at least, until 1967, because Israel did so well in the Six-Day War. The United States said, oh, we need to take you seriously.
See, overall, American foreign policy, anybody, Republican or Democrat, foreign policy toward Israeli country, they are always the same. They both party pro-Israeli, right? It is for American national security interests because
yes, that seems to have been one commonality for a long time in this country, and I don't think it serves American interests. I think Israel has served as a counterweight to a lot of radical regimes in the area, but that's totally different from putting the amount of pressure and influence on American foreign policy that it's done, particularly since the Bush 43 administration. Again, this is a bipartisan kind of thing, as you've noted. And again, it's not that all Jews support Israel no matter what. A lot of Jews are out protesting Israel, but most Jews are going to back whatever the Democratic Party is going to do. And even as we saw under Bush 43, if Israel is attacked or seems under attack in the world, Jews are going to rally to the support. It's such a tricky issue. It should not be, but people are understandably afraid to speak about it. President Trump himself has made rufflings about punishing hate speech that's considered anti-Semitic. Like, wait a second, you're a Republican. Republicans hate speech. That's a left-wing woke kind of thing from day one. But now all of a sudden, well, if you criticize Israel a bit too much, I mean, why do you think Republicans are going to start staying home in these elections? Curtis Sliwa is going to get 3% of the vote. It's not good. It's not good for anyone. Jews are not babies. We can see these things for ourselves and even talk about it. But unfortunately, those that are coming over your airwaves on the TV, and even Donald Trump sometimes with his microphone, are going to really politicize the issue to where, let's put it this way, I see certain Republican outlets that any critique of Israel and U.S. support for Israel is considered pro-Hamas. Like, what? Like, I'm familiar with that person. There's no shape or form that person is pro-Hamas. They disagree with Israeli policy. And if we're just going to fall for that, then there's not really much hope we have of having an independent policy when it comes to that particular issue. And that's a problem then, I think.
I see. So American foreign policy toward Israel is, you can say, usually to counter-attack Islamic extremists in the Middle East. Israel also need America very much too. Can you say that?
Great analogy, because we have similar thing, I think, going on with New York. You have extremists on both sides. They get people in power that are so odious to the opposition that they're going to support their guy no matter how bad they are, because the other guy is worse. Same dynamic, I think, has been going on between Hamas and Israel and the Palestinian Authority, and in this country between the Democratic Party and then certain elements of the Republican platform, particularly as are unduly, in my opinion, influenced by Israel, pro-Israel policy.
Right, right. New York is blow up American domestic power projection. Mamdani is nail Trump head. Can you say like that? Because if he raise tax directly, it will affect Trump. Because Trump has big business in New York and his hometown too, you know.
Yes, no, you're right. There definitely are personal elements which, and when you look, the family business has also become foreign policy because Jared Kushner has been deeply involved with diplomacy of Saudi Arabia. And I will say, from my outsider's perspective, it seems like Mr. Kushner has had some success that no one has had in quite a long time. So I'm not completely closed-minded to the idea that Trump, maybe he's more on top of this than I am. But when I see the way he's looking about going about it, which is a real estate agent looking to take land that he sees as valuable, the people can be moved around as resources and shuffled wherever, and everyone will be happy in the end. I don't think that's the way the president of the United States needs to be approaching these things. That's what a real estate developer would do. And yeah, I'm not too thrilled with that.
So yeah, it's a weaker God present in the city, in the country, which means domestic power projection is very vulnerable and risky in terms of a Christian perspective, as American is a Protestant Christian country. You know, in many other states too, Muslim can win like New York. Is just New York will be the only one?
I think part of what the whole Soros network, for lack of a better term, is trying to do is to water down and weaken the foundational elements of American culture and society. So by bringing in people from different cultures and different religions, they're going to kind of split up identities and cause fragmentation and divisiveness, which will make it easier for the enemies of this country to divide and conquer, if you will. The reaction to that will be, after the economy of the New York City crashes, after crime goes through the roof, after so many businesses and people leave. Cuomo's a Catholic, so we got the Catholic and the Muslim, and then poor Sliwa. So I don't know what to make of it. I mean, you're right about strong Protestant roots in this country, but I don't think that's been the case in New York for a long time. Boston, strong Catholic elements there too. Massachusetts. I think a lot more of it is party based, which tends to be somewhat class based and economically based. But I'll come back again with the Constitution. So long as it is respected and upheld, all of our freedoms, including the First Amendment freedom of religion, are protected. To the extent that it's not, which includes things like importing people who are not citizens into this country and then allowing them to vote and encouraging them to vote, things like that will destroy our republic and the Constitution with it. So religious freedom, the freedom to assemble, all these rights that we have, they're going to go out the door if people are playing fast and loose with the laws. And it's not just one side doing that. And New York City is going to have a rough time. The most I can say is when the pendulum swings back the other way in anywhere from 2 to 4 years and a Republican comes in, I hope maybe there's a little bit of moderation and not the extreme zealot element that we see behind the left in New York now. Because if that happens, all it's going to do is rise up the extremists on the other side again, and it's not going to end. People can't live together like that unless everyone is completely homogenous, shares the same beliefs and culture. Otherwise, no, we have to abide by the balance that our constitutional forms have provided for.
The Muslim population will be increased since Mamdani is winning there in New York City, and Muslim dominated area in the near future. Their grandchildren or great children, they will claim this territory. New York is our Muslim territory.
Demographics is destiny. Demographics is destiny. Yes. I mean, the Muslim birth rates are, I don't know what the numbers are, but around the world, they're probably 2 to 3 times, maybe not three, but considerably higher than Caucasian birth rates. They're always from countries with high demographic birth over death rates into the countries with either negative rates or stable ones. And that's part of the game plan that the Socialist International, for the lack of a better term, has been using for quite a long time. And how are you going to combat that? So part of Trump's big thing was we're going to start enforcing our border again and start promoting pro-nativist policies, promote people actually having children rather than, a woman having her career and then not having any eggs left. No, we want to promote. So that was part of the attraction of Trump, but that's not going to be able to compete if you're bringing in people from other parts of the world that have highly disproportionate demographic rates. Demographics is destiny. No matter what Trump does, if 4 years from now, Democrats get in and they start flooding the borders again with high procreation level ethnicities, what you said is going to happen. The country is no longer going to be from the culture that founded it. It's going to be South Asia, the Near East, the Middle East, what have you. And being those cultures have not grown up with the Constitution that we have in this country, I don't see that working out well at all for the American way of life that's attracted. So many of these people are immigrants and they have assimilated to our way of life. But that happened in a relatively slower way over time. You would take your citizen test, you would do it legally, and that's not the way that the politics of the Soroses and those organizations are working, not just in the United States, but as you know, into Europe as well in recent years.
So who knows, and a lot of Muslim mayor may be influenced. That's American domestic power projection, also foreign policy. Recently also Trump been traveling to the Asia Pacific country, and I mean, Trump made a lot of money, a lot of investment, trillions of money. He brought things, but I mean, those strategy, policy, or those timing, that cannot buy money, and to implement the strategy, oversee power projection. The most Trump did in the Asia Pacific trip was making money. He concerned about trade and he concerned about any economy. Recently, new aircraft carrier. China is moving one step, So now they have 3 aircraft carrier. And Trump went to the ASEAN meeting, APEC meeting. I mean, power projection is not that much successful. It's more about trading. maybe some farmer will be happy if they can sell a penny of money via soybean. That is not worthy to compare to the strategy or power projection. In ASEAN, also some challenges. ASEAN president, Malaysia president is chair, and he also, again, he is pro-Lebanese, Muslim Lebanese supporter. So he did not much helpful, especially in the case of Burma crisis. So ASEAN could not do anything successfully for solving Burma's crisis, even though Trump is traveling there, they could not done anything, and there are a lot of Protestant Christian in Burma too. Children of God are there. Last time I sent a letter to Trump, open letter, you know that Trump need to pay attention. My letter, that is the will of God for all American Christian believer. That's more important than any other thing, power projection, fulfilling the will of God. APEC even not mention about Burma. Burma is the biggest conflict or humanitarian crisis in the Asia Pacific region at the moment. But APEC did not mention at all about Burmese crisis. So that U.S. power projection abroad, and suddenly New York domestic power projection was blow up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we've spoken about this before. For whatever reason, Trump has allowed himself to get inveigled in war in Europe and in the Middle East, even though he was supposed to be the president of no new wars, and ignoring too much for a lot of our concerns, the strategic center of gravity, which should be the Indo-Pacific, including some of the soft power initiatives that you're talking about. I don't think he has any time for that or interest in that because, well, he already has to deal with this Ukraine thing that he didn't really want, this Israel thing, which he didn't really want. But, I think it's just too much at that point. I don't know. I wish that they had more say in some of the soft power machinations in that part of the world, and including helping Burma. But for the moment, at least while things are going on in Ukraine with Russia and in the Middle East, I don't think Trump's ears will be open to anything else. So maybe those conflicts can get resolved, and then maybe we'll start to have more influence in the Indo-Pacific.
Russia is not a rising power; it is declining power. So that Ukraine cases, because Russia itself is declining. But in Indo-Pacific strategy, Asia Pacific is China is arising. Just Trump left and China commissioned aircraft carrier. China is not Russia in terms of monetary, economic power, military power. So you cannot, U.S. cannot handle like Russia. 1 year is too long if any strategy or any policy. They have to do on time. I mean, my point is they should do on time. It's about geopolitics and U.S. Power projection. If the leader, if they pay attention, and it's definitely the will of God to protect the children of God.
And that long-term strategy needs to be wed to force posture, which brings into account setting the budget, which brings into account where is your center of gravity and what is your grand strategy. Because right now what we have is just the wars of the moment, the tyranny of the moment, which becomes the budget of the moment, which becomes the force posture of the moment, which means you have predominantly land-based weapons systems instead of naval-based systems and smart weapons and asymmetric systems that we need completely different budgeting, completely different geopolitical strategy and basics. The most basic things. But yes, as long as we're involved in the tyranny of the moment, the wars of the moment, what have you. China is going to continue to think long term as they do, to their credit. And we're going to continue to think what every 4 years. I don't like our odds if that's the case. That and all the cutting of government and Doge and things like that. Which again, I think that's great, but you need some government, you need some defense. Where are you going to put it? But instead of looking at it like that,